If you recall, when I started doing the lives, I guess that would have been like September. When I started doing the lives, I mentioned to you all that I had gone to a retreat up in the Berkshires, and it was a black men's retreat. It was yoga, and it was meditation, and how much that impacted me, because it's something I've been interested in for a very long time, something I've been trying to work on making a regular part of my practice, but something I specifically really needed at that point, because I was coming off of 7 years at that point, 6, 7 years, hard talking about the worst things, the worst things that uh, this country has to offer, especially for Black people. I mean, you talking about me giving commentary from 2017 to 2023. I needed, I needed some space. I needed some time. I needed some clarity. I needed all that. So I mentioned you guys had gone on this retreat, and how I was impacted by the retreat, just seeing people like me and being around people like me, and not having to do the mental gymnastics of trying to belong when you're trying to decompress. Well, while I was at that retreat, I had a lot of great conversations with a lot of people, but one especially with the gentleman who's responsible for that retreat, who happens to be right here in the area of the DMV, a man by the name of Reggie Hubbard. And we talked about the idea, when we go back home, we're going to get together and we're going to talk. Well, we finally have the opportunity. I finally have the opportunity to sit down and chop it up with this brother. And those of you who don't know or haven't been aware of him and everything that he's been bringing, I would say you were missing out, but you won't be much longer. Without further ado, I'm going to bring him in. He is the man behind Active Peace Yoga. And I believe if you don't already follow him on Instagram, I believe it's OG Reggie Global. So make sure you get my man on Instagram, Mr. Reggie Hubbard. What is going on, my friend?
Peace, friend. Peace and blessings. Good to see you. And yeah, it took a while, but we here. You can't rush. You can't rush God's timing, fam.
That is true. That is a beautiful beautiful intro. And in the time before we originally spoke, and the time that we actually get to speak, you done gone and blown up. So I'm like, oh man, I'm glad I set the groundwork back in the day, because it'd been hard to get you these days.
I mean, like I told you in pre-production, man, Spirit has been busy with the dude. You know what I mean? I am the most unlikeliest of yoga teachers. I'm the most unlikeliest of meditation teachers, because, and I'm sure we'll talk about this deeper, the level of racism in our culture is unfathomable, right? You know what I mean? Like meditative experiences, yogic and meditative experiences are the province of Black and brown people. Yet, as with most things like country music, I listened to that Beyonce song today for the first time. Beyonce is on it. And how you not gonna call that country? That's another thing. But since Black people created country music and y'all took the banjo, but I digress. In the yoga and meditative space, everyone talks like this and all these other things. I'm a brother from Maryland who grew up in the golden era of hip hop, who is as spiritual and mindful as all of them, but I listen to way too much X-Clan and Public Enemy to be caught up on that ridiculous whitewashed bullshit. This is not how I'm getting down. Especially for me, yoga and meditation are paths to liberation. Right. The reason that I can exist in this skin, in this world, is because I found such a deep, profound love of self that I have to share it with people who look like us, because you ain't got to fall for that gaslighting stuff. You know what I mean? And, we'll talk a little bit more about it. But the reason that permission and refuge is in the world is because I had a sad reality. I was like, if we don't take care of us, ain't nobody going to do it. So from that point of harsh reality, a profound sense of love and mission was born that is now, I don't even know where it's going.
I mean, apparently it's going to Alabama. This is from what you telling me right now. Apparently, it's going. So you going to go down there and be able to talk to some of the elders in our community, which is dope. So many different questions I have for you, but the first one that I have is more big picture, which is why are these practices so needed and necessary for our community?
One is that we have been, what Malcolm X say, hoodwinked and bamboozled, right? You know what I mean? Like there is a pathology that has been imprinted in the Black psyche that is essential for the maintenance of white supremacy. And that pathology is that you're not enough, that your history doesn't matter, and that you're not worthy of healing, justice, all those sorts of things. So it creates such internal conflict within us that we essentially, individually and collectively, have a self-destructive pathology that doesn't serve anybody other than the oppressor. So for me, yoga and meditation have allowed me to find liberation in mind, body, and spirit so that I can unleash the gift of my Black excellence on the world.
You know what's fascinating about that? I was in therapy one time. Yes, your boy is on therapy. I was in therapy one time, and the therapist asked me a question about feeling like you need to put up a front or feeling like you need to represent yourself differently because you're not enough. And all of a sudden my mind exploded because I was like, that is something that I learned to do at like 5 or 6,
right,
when I had to go to elementary school, with these kids from Cheverly, and I was coming from Forestville, and I was going to be around, a completely different class makeup. Like I learned that so young that that idea of code switching, which is something that Black people have been doing for generations in order to get through and get by in a white society. But the idea that is something that is psychologically damaging, when apparently psychologically damaging, like I'm learning this, right? The idea that that's something that's psychologically damaging, but it was a necessary tool in order to function, was wild to me. I was like, well, like, how deep does this go?
Right. It goes to the soul level, right? You know, I mean, one of the blessings of yoga and meditation for me is that, like, I show up in yoga spaces. So for those of you can't see me, I'm a big dude, right? You know what I mean? Big. I mean, I got big energy. I'm sure that's coming through, but I'm like 6'2". I'm like 265, 270. I'm a big guy. And in yoga and meditation spaces, people are not usually my color, my size, or my vibe. And so it goes so deep that it was used to maintain the system of slavery. You know what I mean? It is a lock that has been put on the Black and brown psyche to stay in your place, when in reality, we're not physical beings. We're spiritual beings having a physical experience. And, Native culture, Black culture, indigenous culture knows that we're here for a short time. And in that time, we're meant to shine. And so unlearning, and that's why yoga and meditation are important for our community, just to put a finer point on it. Unlearning what you've been told that you are and aren't, and learning what you are, is key to like individual and collective liberation and healing.
So I asked why this was necessary for our community. My follow-up would be, now, what is it about the world that we live in now that makes it particularly critical? And I say that because we're in this space where, at least as far as my experience, right? My experience, I'm told that I'm racist for drawing attention to inequities, or daring to ask for proper representation when it comes to DEI, right? The assault on DEI, right? So they've gone and turned everything on its head, and they've totally stolen and co-opted the word woke, and you get people able to run rampant on Twitter. I'd say is mama named it Twitter. I'm gonna call it
Twitter. Right? Ain't no X. Right?
Ain't no X. No. People are able to express their outlandish views on there freely, but then other people get shadow ban for
The
sharing the
truth.
wrong thing about what's going on in the wrong region of the world.
Right.
Why is this so useful now and so necessary now?
It's so necessary now because there's rampant misinformation and gaslighting. And those two things create chaos, which is how the master's tools like flourish in chaos. So I have such clarity, you know what I mean? This has happened at Kripalu, where people have been like, oh my goodness, they look at me and I'm like, I'm the teacher, this is my room, like for like the mixed race stuff that I do. And this one woman was like, you're so confident. And I was like, and it's not through help of anyone who looks like you. Said it directly to her in front of other people. And people in the class were like, I'm like, oh, where's the lie though? You know what I mean? You may not even be aware how your passive aggressive supremacy lands, and that soil is not fertile here. You know what I mean? So people, even if they're unintending to be harmful, have been drinking such harmful toxicity. It is a guard against that. You know what I mean? Like I grew up in the church, and when they say pray up and put on the armor of God, meditation to some extent is the armor of God for the sanctity of my mind.
How do you find and I mean like tangibly, like as far as what you do, you see something, you read something, whatever the case, you hear something that just gives you that feeling, right?
Yeah.
That feeling that we all know quite well. You know what I mean? What is it that you do? Like what's your how do you find peace in that moment?
Well, one, I've gotten so quote unquote over the top. I carry sound with me. You know what I mean? So people be tripping. I'll be in like Union Station. I'll just be like, you know what I mean? And come back home, like someone will cut you off, or someone will, like some white person on the metro will do something sideways and crazy. You know what I mean? Like, cause life is life. So I carry sound with me sometimes. I'll be in the corner waiting for my train or whatever, like this. Come back home and just come back to that. That's one. Two, I have trained my mind that when I touch my fingertips together, it's like a reminder that, okay, you're feeling your fingertips, you're coming back into a peaceful moment within yourself. So you're not like ready to fly off somebody. Because the other thing too is like I was me for 40 years before this yoga and meditation thing happened. Like Reese, I was the king of cutting people in half of my words. Right. And the prince of wishing a motherfucker would. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like so I was like my native tongue is anger. My native tongue, especially, I mean, you and I have similar pedigree in terms of just like preppy schools and all this other stuff, Ivy League, blah, all this stuff. They be coming at you super hard there, you know what I mean? So like we have the pedigree of working our ass off to get into these places that never wanted us in the first place, right? So I've been angry for 25 years and realized that anger was killing me. I had stress-induced eczema. My arm used to be white because of the tension that I carried in my body, right? So like what I do now is remember those days. But again, it's either I play sound or I'll touch my fingertips together to remember that their ignorance is not my burden.
A little bit more about your journey, because you told me the story, but I want people to know your journey from the prep school to the guy who was having stress-induced eczema to the man who they see today. Okay,
so I'm from Anne Arundel County, Maryland. Family is from Virginia, like not Virginia, not like the DC suburbs, like Virginia. They still be flying them stars in bars where my people are from. And am rooted in the history and the stories of my ancestors, right? So really rooted in the stories of Black liberation, of like subtle and overt resistance to like harmful oppressive systems. And was the first in my family to go to school, went to Yale undergrad, was class president in high school, all these things. And when I got older, I realized that like, I was one of the first maybe ever from Anne Arundel County, Maryland, to go to an Ivy League school. There was no mention of it in the paper. All these mentions of like whoever going to Towson State, no shade on Towson State or anything like that. But a brother going to Yale first gen, no mention. Okay. Right. And so, and I grew up in the golden era of hip hop. So it was like Me Against the World. Like all of these anthems were in my head as a coping mechanism that was necessary because at the time I was coming of age, the super predator laws were being passed. And like 3 strikes you out, like all these sorts of things. So to some extent, it's a miracle that I'm here before you today. So I want to give gratitude to the ancestors and my parents for helping shield me from that ridiculousness, right? Especially the 2 worlds that we had to straddle. Shout out to Elder Du Bois. But worked in politics forever, worked in global marketing forever. And again, like world beater, like only Black, first, youngest, all these different things. Never got the credit, got passed over. They try to take your bonus away, all these different things. So there is a seething vibe that starts to well up within you. Like, just like it's either, it went from like, woe is me to I'm going to light all y'all up. And so for a while, it was a good propulsion mechanism for ridiculous achievement. It takes a toll on the body. In my mid to late 30s, I was overweight significantly. Bags under my eyes like they were designer purses. You know what I mean? Just wearing them and showing them, stunting on them like that. And no joke, it was as if the ancestors whispered in my ear, "We did not send you here for this. Get your life right, please." Right? There is a mission before you that you drinking bourbon for breakfast and chain smoking at lunch is not going to get you there. And so it was such a profound experience, Reese. I looked around and saw that I was by myself. It was just that present. And so from then, it was April 1st, 2013, where I basically was like, I'm going to go on a hardcore cleanse because I realized my relation to food is toxic. I realized the psychological patterning that has developed in my mind that has become self-destructive. And so luckily I got that philosophy major from Yale because I deconstructed aspects of my psychology that weren't working for me. And that has led to my yoga practice. It led to my meditation practice. And I just kept at yoga and meditation as a tool for myself. I never planned to become a teacher because I just didn't see a pathway for it. You know what I mean? Like, there was no one at the front of the room who looked like me. I've been an activist and an organizer and a marketing guy longer than I've been any of these other things. And so I was like, I'm going to use this tool for self-preservation. Then Trump won. And Trump won. Again, ancestors visited with me. It was just like, you've been fighting in activism and politics. Now we really need you to go into the heart of darkness. So I moved back home from Colorado to the DMV. Started working for Move On, and was intimately involved in flipping the house, impeaching the motherfucker, and removing him. You know what I mean? Like when Rashida Tlaib broke the internet saying we're going to impeach that guy, that was my show. That party came out of my budget, right? And so I was intimately involved in the 116th Congress as a Black guy. But at the same time, Reese, I started adopting yoga teaching practices because I was like, so if I'm going to be in the middle of the torrent of terrible, I have to be so anchored in my spirituality that I'm unfazed. And so I took 700 to 900 hours of yoga teacher training while being in the middle of the resistance as a Black dude. And did not know that in 2020, when after impeachment happened in the House and didn't happen in the Senate, like I'd been in all of that and had all these plans about taking a break. I was going to go on like this yogic Shangri-La tour. The damn coronavirus hits and we're all stuck. And it was then that I realized, oh, I need to teach now. So Active Peace was born because when the coronavirus happened, I was so peaceful about it. I was just like, oh, my plans have been uprooted and things ain't going the way I planned. That's the Black experience. You know what I mean? I remember walking around seeing white people in distress and I was like, things ain't going like you. Oh, you've never had that happen to you. Oh,
yeah,
right. Everything goes your way. You're not used to things switching like this. And oh, right. So I said it as an intellectual exercise, not in a pejorative sense, right? So from that, I was like, that's a pretty peaceful, compassionate response. You should probably teach from that place. And Active Peace was launched in April 2020 and has been blowing up ever since.
A question popped in my mind when you were talking about your upbringing, because we have such shared rootage, such shared root systems. I think about this now as a father, because you mentioned, I got the new one, the new edition. I got the 23, the fall 23 just popped out. They go to a daycare, and my got some strings pulled, and they got into the good daycare. My daughter, I get little photos of her every day. She's the only brown one in the class, right? And my son, the only brown one in the class. And I think about the mental gymnastics and what I later found out to be trauma that I had to undo as an adult that I learned as a child. So just the fundamental question, is it possible to be to go through the experience that we went through, and to be in a PWI or neighborhood or whatever the case may be, without that level of trauma? Like, is that just the price of admission? If I want to send my child to this school, or we want to be in this environment, is that just the price of admission? Or is there actually something that we can do to support that child, or something we can teach her to do in order to better protect him or her, whoever's in that situation?
Yeah, I think it's both and, right? I mean, I think to some extent, until white America gets over its virulent addiction pathologically to racism and white supremacy, unless and until it is the price of admission to be there. Because, and at the same time, I know that your harm, if adequately addressed, your harm becomes your healing. Part of the reason that I can be at Kripalu, part of the reason that I can work, I work with Nancy Pelosi now doing political strategy, this Black dude, right? And so, in addition to teaching and all these other things, part of the reason that I can so easily traverse these worlds is because of that. You know what I mean? I had to decouple the anger. I had to decouple, because it's a basic psychological need to need to be accepted. And, these predominantly white environments, do not allow for your acceptance. They basically foist upon you the necessity of survival. So you're never really accepted. So you get in this survival loop. If you've got the right teachers and environment, you can teach kids. So the blessing of all that for me is that eventually I was just like, oh, y'all ain't never gonna like me. No ways. So I ain't playing this game no more. And if you don't like me, you're just living up to the brand. And if you do like me, I'm shocked, but I'm not here for you, right? And so that whole experience eventually hit me to the game. Oh, you're never gonna like my Black ass. So I'm just gonna be the dopest me ever. And if you rock with me, cool. If you get in my way, I'm gonna run your ass over.
Man, what I heard is I should have had a whole lot of grace for the brothers that I thought was tap dancing a little bit too hard. To the brothers I thought was smiling a little bit too hard, I was like, I shouldn't have been that. I shouldn't have been that rough. You know what I mean? And I know that it was other people looking at me. I know that, but I'm like, oh, he laughed a little too hard. I don't like it.
It's like, yeah, right. It's like, that's not how you talk to me.
No.
That's a different voice. No, for sure. Totally.
Right. Oh, no. How many different voices we grow up with? You know what I mean? How many
exactly
voices we grow up with? Oh, and you know what? As an aside, so you mentioned Kripalu. I wanted to get into the teaching and healing and refuge. So I mentioned that Reggie was the instructor at the retreat that I went to. What's fascinating about that was like the third retreat I've been to. But I've been to kind of some meditations and things like that. The thing is, you get into these spaces, and all of a sudden, my old school, self-conscious, fear pops in, and how am I looking, and how am I coming off, and all that. And I'm like, bro, you're here to meditate, right? Or you're here to do, yoga, whatever the case may be. And so I take it as a measure of how well this is working, by how much I'm able to drop all that self-consciousness. That's under normal circumstances. But you put me in a Black space, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know what to all that self-conscious didn't know what to do. It was like, wait, how we gonna talk? How we going? Oh, look at your shoes, man. You should have got a shape up. I know you should have got a shape up before you came up here. You out here, you got the brother. I was like, nah, man, you got to represent. And I'm like, bro, I'm. So this is just me then. This is just me.
Yeah.
This is just how I walk around. Like I'm gonna find a way to be self-conscious regardless, apparently. Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing about that is that, and that's why the retreat is called Permission and Refuge, is because if you remember, I was like, I don't care when you show up. If you show up, just be present. Like if you need to go do something for you, if you got some things jumping around in your head and you need to like sleep more or be outside or whatever, just go for that. And that was consciously put in there because the work that experience represents is so radical. I, as a Black dude, can be as I want to be on my own terms with other Black men being as they want to be on their own terms, right? Like that's the revolution.
Why did you call it Permission and Refuge? Which, by the way, was the name of the retreat that I went to, that Reggie put on, which he's still doing up at Kripalu.
Because people who look like us rarely have permission to explore or be who they really are. You know what I mean? The blessing of my life now is that like I'm political strategist and writer and musician and we have to like make all these unnecessary choices all the time. So permission is because we rarely have permission to explore the fullness of ourselves, or even try something else out. And refuge is having the safety with which to do that exploration. So one of the biggest blessings of the retreat that we did last May and the one that happened in August is that when I have like 15 to 20 Black men asleep, resting together, not looking at their watches, so comfortable in their mind, body, and spirit that they're resting, that's mission accomplished. You know what I mean? Like the goal of the retreat is to get you so comfortable that the body heals, the spirit relaxes. In community with other people, there's alchemy in Black healing in community, right? And so like it happening in one person is great. It happening in a room of 15 to 20 people ranging from age 23 to 60, queer, trans, straight together, that, sir, is some gumbo.
The idea of permission was a real game changer. I understood the idea of refuge. It was going to be a refuge that we were there together and we were creating our own Sangha. But the idea of permission, which you expressed at the very beginning, that we have permission in order to be fully ourselves during the course of, this week that we were there, was something that was a really big deal and not something that we get. I think the way you word it was just permission is not something that Black men are used to receiving. That kind of blanket permission. And that was really dope. I didn't, when I saw it, I was like, permission and refuge. That's interesting. Like, I was like, are they letting us on campus? Or we outside campus asking for permission to use the facilities? I didn't know.
Thank you.
But when we showed up, I was like, oh yeah, now I get it. Now I get it.
The other part of permission too is that like we showed up in a pack in the middle of the dining hall, laughing and being. And guess what? What I tell y'all, I know I said it in August. I hope I said it in May. I was like, don't tell these Bamas nothing. Permission to keep our joy to ourselves. Permission to not have to explain to white people why I'm laughing. It's none of your damn business. I'm healing right now. And the beautiful thing about Black healing is that it helps you out too. Because like when I'm my unattached, liberated self, like that is a magic that is the genesis of jazz music. It's the genesis of rock music, all these other things. Like our Black creativity and liberation is the balm for the world.
You mentioned the dining hall. And I wonder if you know what I'm about to ask you now. So we were in the dining hall one day and we were eating, chopping it up. And all of a sudden there was a tap that came from behind. And there was an older white woman who had a story. I think she wanted to tell a story about when she was growing up and what the Black people could and couldn't do and how she feels while seeing us. I just remember being in that moment and just being like, lady, like, why are you taking this chance? Like, you could have just sat there. Like, you realize how left this can go. Cause I know that you were fired up from teaching all morning. And I'm like, like it really was worth it for you to take these kind of chances to get blown up. And then I'm kind of looking at Reggie like, Reggie, just let her live, man. Just let her live, Reggie. Just let her live. I just want to finish my minestrone soup.
Yeah.
Just let her live. But it actually ended up being like a good exchange. It ended up being an exchange she walked away from, apparently feeling validated that she was able to express this. But you know, you guys had a good conversation. But it comes up because I'm just thinking like, okay, under normal circumstances, if this would have happened, you have to choose exactly how real to keep it. You know what I mean? You always have to pick a number based on where you're at and who's hearing, and you gotta, how real am I gonna keep it right now? But we were at permission and refuge, which means we got permission to keep it at a 10. So I'm like, are we about to do this right now? Are we really about to do this? You've done a few of them now, right? So I went to the first one. What have you learned from the first one to the second, from the second one to the third? Or what's some of the feedback you've gotten that can make it even more effective when you do the next one? Because I believe you got another one coming up in May, right?
Yeah, right. So the anchor event is in May. The one last week got canceled. Kripalu had a flood, man. So like they canceled the like they had a flood on the second floor, and they're closed till like mid-March. But so we rescheduled all that. They call it the baptism. I was just like, y'all, it's a flush, like something needed to go. You know what I mean? So like honor the element of water. So
shout out to Kripalu, because you know, back in the day, they'd be like, we closed for everybody but them. Y'all go ahead. Y'all do your thing in the midst of the flood.
Right. So the first one was a blessing, and like I was just hoping people would come, man. You know what I mean? Like I was like it was the first of its kind at Kripalu, and I can't say ever because they'd be erasing our history like that. You know what I mean? But like it in our common consciousness, it is not common to see this sort of thing in general, much less a legacy-wide institution. So Ava Taylor, so shout out to Ava. Ava was like, Reggie, Kripalu wants to partner with you to do anything that you want. And this is in like November or December 22. And I was like, anything? And she's like, yeah. I was like, help me heal Black men with your money. And so Ava was my thought partner. And when I would come up with these wild things, like I want scholarships and I want to do this thing that's virtual and in person and blah, blah, blah. So I'm basically throwing all this creativity at this thing. And the first one worked so well that begat the second one. So now that we're in a cadence of it being the second year or those sorts of things, number one, I learned that, you know, most people, whether you do retreats, events, or whatever, like if you're an event planner, hear my words, you do not have to pack the schedule. Right. So keeping space for people to digest, to be human, to live their lives, those sorts of things, that's not commonly done. And so like I am staying with that model of like light programming, keeping it super basic so that the energy of connection, the energy of liberation, the energy of the land, all those sorts of things can have their space to do what it needs to do. So keeping a sparse schedule with flexibility, that's baseline. You know what I mean? That's number one. Number two is that there's now a cohort. There are now 40 people that have done this experience. Like it went from being like an idea in my head to something that's impacted 40 brothers across the nation. Right? You know what I mean? So there is something to draw from. There is a network. There's a grapevine. You know what I mean? So if you can't make it, I just need you to talk about it. You know what I mean? Like, because the work of permission and refuge and all the conversations I do about it is just to normalize the conversations among Black men about what healing looks like. So there are now 40 de facto ambassadors
Oh man, did he freeze? Is that me?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I think the last thing I heard was ambassadors, like 40 de
Yeah, we have
facto
40 de
ambassadors.
facto. We have 40 de facto ambassadors, all of whom are like no. I've gotten no bad feedback yet. Everyone has had a positive experience, and wow, like number one. Number two is that I just need people to be the grapevine. Even if people never come back again, just talk about it. Remind people that this is accessible. This is an opportunity for them. Even if they can't make it, I want Black men and those who identify as men to know that there is something like this out there. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because Black imagination is one of the most powerful things in the universe, right? So if you know that it's like there was a thing called freedom that people hoped for when they never even saw it possible, but people kept talking about this thing called freedom in the Black experience. So for me, I'm leaning on that truism of the Black experience where I was like, I just need you to know it's possible to be healed. It's
Mm-hmm.
possible to have conversations with people who look like you about spiritual growth and liberation. It's possible. And so in that offering of possibility, who knows what happens with that? Because like the reason I went to Yale is because I saw Kurt Schmoke on TV back in the day. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, it's possible. I can do that. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
so that harnessing that aspect of the Black experience is key. And I've learned to just lean deeper into that as permission and refuge grows. Right. And the last thing I'll say is like, I'm an organizer as well. I don't want it to be all about Reggie. I want people to come because this is what's happened with some people all over the country. They've come to permission and refuge, been so lit up that they go back to their community and start doing stuff for us. Like that's the
Mm-hmm.
model that I want. And I want permission and refuge to be all these pods of Black excellence and healing to come build together, and then we disperse, kill it, then come back. So I now have a better idea of what we're trying to do here. And I'm probably, and the last thing I'll say is I learned to just never doubt creativity. It always works for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love what you said about Black healing and why that's important for everybody that Black people find healing. That was my next question. But before I ask you that, y'all always, when I'm here live on Tuesday, y'all be chatting and having conversations amongst yourselves. I be having to be like an elementary school teacher. Like, why don't y'all settle down? Y'all just sitting here listening to Reggie, which I appreciate. But I was going to ask him some questions. If you guys had some questions in the chat, I was going to pull them out and ask him. So if you feel inspired or you feel moved to ask Reggie something, feel free to throw it in the chat because I'm going to save the end of this to be able to ask Reggie stuff. Okay. Why is it important for everybody, not just for Black people and the people immediately around them? Why is it important for everybody to that Black people find that kind of healing?
We cannot move forward as a nation until there's redemption for the people that were most oppressed, right? Until there's redemption for the native peoples, America will be caught in the toxic web of delusion and destruction. You know what I mean? Until there's redemption for the enslaved humans that built this country without any respect for their labor and were actually treated as castaway labor, even though they're human beings, we will not achieve like if people talk about God bless America, like I'd like to see that for people who look like us. You know what I mean? And there is a delusion that I know from my spiritual practice that doesn't end well. It doesn't end well when you consistently delude yourself into thinking everything's fine and they'll figure it out. No, like there is an opportunity here for us to transcend the shackles of race and ignorance. And that happens for me. That has happened in my personal life as I've healed myself. Because as I've done this healing for myself, Reese, like you said, the come up has been ridiculous. Like I've been able to help tens of thousands of people just because I nurtured myself. You know what I mean? And because I did this work on myself of all races, specifically us, but like all parts of humanity have like benefited from the work that I've done on myself. So can you imagine the lightening of our load and how that will translate to our communities, to our ancestors? Like, so the way that we have been conditioned to run ourselves into the ground, like grind, all these other things, if we let that go, can you imagine like the art that can come from that? Like the collaborations that can come from that? Like ridding ourselves of the pathology, and specifically Black folks ridding ourselves of that pathology will be of impact, not just for Black and brown people, but for all people.
The idea that you have to grind and you have to double down and you have to find a way to fix
slave
it
master
and do it on
thinking.
this level. Yeah, that's a hard one to escape.
Yeah, but because that it's an imprint of like slavery. It's an imprint of like everything has to be quantified. I have to work. I have to do this. I have to do this. And then when they freed us, whatever the hell that means, and then paid us pittance on the dollar, I have to work. I have to work. Like, so it's all derivative of human enslavement.
By the way, I put it in the chat. Make sure you follow Reggie at Reggie Global, as well as Active Peace Yoga. That's right there in the chat. What changes have you seen in the yogic space, right, in the mindfulness space since you've been there?
Right. So again, I never planned on being here at all, right? Like I like organizer, art, like whatever. But there is now so I was on this call this weekend with Kripalu celebrating Black voices. And a sister from North Carolina was on there, and she was like, I get to introduce my spiritual brother and yogic icon. And I'm thinking she's gonna talk about somebody else. And she's like, Reggie Hubbard. I was like, oh shit, right? Like, so I was like, oh, I've made that much of an impression on people. And it's because she's a sister who understands like the beauty of the Black diaspora and speaks truth to power and does it with a smile and maybe a few curses and those sorts of things. So there has been an authenticity raising in the yoga community, because a lot of people be fronting and stunting, fam. You know what I mean? Like, I am me. Like, sometimes I cut my hair, sometimes I don't. Sometimes whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I am me. I'm showing up today as I am in this moment. Like I said, I listen to way too much hip hop to not keep it real. And there is a down to earth nature in spiritual practice that has been missing, especially because of the whitewashing of it, that has been given birth to. Like, there are people who have trained with or studied with me who are just authentically themselves. And I was like, your gift as a teacher, the best gift you can give is your unabashed authenticity. Like, not trying to be nobody else. Like I'm the one and only Reginald Alton Hubbard II. So I'm gonna be that guy until this guy don't exist no more. And like that level of authenticity. I remember I taught a class once, and I think 13 seconds into the class, I said, you know what I mean? And I was just like, hey, this teacher curses. And sometimes I believe that's wise speech, because I don't believe someone is dastardly. I believe they're a you know, like that's what I believe.
Yeah.
And so like being that honest, being that raw from a loving place didn't really exist as it does now, nor has there been the space for it to grow and breathe, right? So another thing is that I birthed my practice online. So I've basically smashed the studio model, for me anyway, because they never would let me in the door as a teacher, you know, because of the style that I teach. So there has been an awakening of, oh, I can just be myself. And like, if you are yourself, you won't get everybody, but you'll get the people that are meant for you. So that level of, because Reese, I send a newsletter once a month, whenever I feel like sending it. And if you show up to my stuff, great. If you don't show up to my stuff, great. Someone's like, I feel like I missed your stuff. I was like, you need to make a commitment. Like, I'm not going to beg nobody to come to my shit. My shit is always dope because I've got Prince and Jimi Hendrix on my wall. Like, those are the patron saints of active peace, Jimi Hendrix and Prince. And if those are the anchors of your teaching practice, it has to be dope. So every time I step on the mic or invite people into the space, it's going to be lit and soul filled. If you can't make a commitment to come to that, I'm not going to beg you to come. So I even say that to people, and I'm smashing through. Oh, I hope you come. Nah, if you come, you come. If you don't come, that ain't on me. That's on you.
You mentioned something a while back talking about how I forgot how you phrased it. You must be some kind of teacher. You remember these lines. So like I forgot how you phrased it. It was something like your pain. It was the way that your pain can be a benefit to you once you are on this path of healing. And so I just wanted you
Your
to
harm can be
speak
your
to.
healing, your wound
There
can be
you
your
go.
wisdom.
There you go.
Your harm is your
Um,
healing, your wound is your wisdom.
I just wanted you to expound on that a little bit. Just if there are people that are listening, like I used to hear some stuff, and I'm down the road where I clearly need to be brought back, but I haven't reached the breaking point where you have no choice. So people that feel like they're so far away, what can you say about how what they're going through in that internal turmoil can actually be a benefit in this space?
10 years ago, 12 years ago, I was homeless in Europe at the end of my graduate school career. I hated everyone and everything. Hated people, was mad at the world, mad at God. I felt like I was living the book of Job. Nothing was going right. And I had to humble myself. And now that rich vein of adversity that 12, 13 years ago I thought would never end has become the fountain from which I help people heal, right? Like I remember one time, this is in Washington, D.C., one of my former colleagues was pointing out homeless people and like, look at them. And I was like, what would you do if you knew that someone who you know very well was homeless? They're like who? I was like, me. Yeah. And so I gave them some medicine and helped myself heal. And it's actually made me a more compassionate advocate. You know what I mean? So there is no them because I was one of them. It's us, right? So that's one thing. Two is that I can speak about the power of compassion because I used to hate everybody. My anger was so profound that the skeptic has become the converted, you know what I mean? And like the converted has become the evangelist, right? So like I don't speak about yoga as, oh, balance your energy. I was like, it has given me liberation in mind, body, and spirit to be this black, awesome, excellent thing running through the world right now. You know what I mean? And it has given me the tools to take anger and use it as a creative fuel, right? So, it sounds cliche, but it like cliche and corny are two different things. You know what I mean? Like cliches exist because there's a measure of truth in it. Corny is just whack. So the wound is your wisdom is that like through healing practice, through the tincture of time, as one of my friends talks about, through the tincture of time, there's a matter of perspective that can give you a different learning from something that was once debilitating to you. It can actually be the foundation for your renaissance.
I just heard my own internalized white supremacy in my head because you were talking about I was homeless in Europe and I was like, oh, maybe he was backpacking. I was like, oh, that sounds exotic. I reacted way different than if you would say, yeah, I was homeless in Baltimore. I know what that is. Like I know what homeless in Baltimore, homeless in Europe. Oh, that's fascinating. Tell me more.
It was in grad school. I didn't have no money. It sucked.
No. Like, yeah. It's funny the way that these things can be framed. You have a seasonal. You're doing an online seasonal thing right now as well, right?
Winter Blues, Grief Sangha.
Whoever's watching, whoever's struggling, whoever's dealing with the insides, like we got all over the Eastern Seaboard, just can you help me out, brother?
I mean, one of the things I want to do is like create with you specifically is create like more conversations like this so people know that this exists. Like I taught this past weekend and this guy was like, I can't get over the fact that there's so many Black teachers. There were like 4 of us. And so like most people are turned away from these practices because ain't nobody who looks like us, ain't nobody that talks like us. So what I would say for anyone who's listening who just doesn't feel that it's accessible to them, that's what they want you to think. You know what I mean? They want you to be caught in this rut of running in circles, seeking healing, as opposed to doing it, right? You know what I mean? And the one thing I'll say lastly for this question is that it ain't that glamorous, meaning like it's a day by day experience. Like when the first time I was asked to practice yoga, I responded the following way: I ain't no skinny white woman. Why would I do that? And stood on that business for a while. And then once I started practicing yoga and realized it has nothing to do with that toxic sorority social club stuff, it is an opportunity for you to dig deep within yourself and use the pain that's there, release it. And in that releasing of pain, just open yourself up to the miracle that is you, right? Like, you're not here on accident. Like, that's not how the universe works, especially if you are of color. You are here to do great things, and that great thing may just be living a life of peace in honor of your ancestors that couldn't. Like, we undercut that often, but like, the fact that we can live in peace doesn't just heal us, it heals those of us who didn't have that opportunity.
By the way, make sure you follow Reggie at Reggie Global and Active Peace Yoga. Matter of fact, I'm gonna do a little stroll right there while you answer the next question, which is something that has been befuddling Black people since the calendar said 2024. We have been just going back and forth between, Hollywood and everybody online and whatever the case may be. Was Cat Williams wrong to go on Club Shay Shay and let the chopper sing? Was he wrong? Was he wrong to do that?
I mean, here's what I know. I know that everything that happens in Hollywood ain't what it appears. And I know that I used to work in the music industry as well. It ain't what it appears. You worked in TV. It ain't what it appears. Right. So I don't know. I have a different way of moving through the world. However, I also gave an interview recently where someone did me dirty, and I had sought to protect their name before. And in the interview, the name came out. And then I was like, you know what? I wouldn't have to name your name if you didn't do the shit. Right. And so I'm kind of in both of those, like, because I grew up on the Bad Boys Moving Silence era. And at the same time, like I said, this person who did dirt, like, I quoted their name, and then I stopped and I was like, no, I meant it. It was Mark. And Mark, you ain't had no business doing that. You know what I mean? Like, so why keep secrets of those who did dirt on you?
I am conflicted and as well. I generally land on the side of, because this is the thing. When there are people, when there's ever any sort of like atrocity, right? When there's some long-standing criminal enterprise or some kind of monster, some kind of, person that gets taken down has been committing crimes for a long period of time. We all say, why didn't nobody say nothing? Oh, you mean all these people knew and nobody said nothing? Meanwhile, we know we have one of our most famous quotes that everybody loves to throw out and not mean it, about how evil flourishes when good men do nothing, right?
Right.
But then when Taraji P. Henson comes out and talks about her treatment in Hollywood, all of a sudden everybody wants to look at her like she messed it up for everybody else. Oh, right. So if she stays quiet, then you like, why did you let this happen to the next generation? Y'all should have done something, right? Right. So you don't get to mistreat me, and then I'm the wrong one, for saying what happened. At the same time, I'm like, okay, I'm also trying to find, peace, individual peace, right? Yeah. And serenity. And I'm like, what gives me the most? Sometimes, and this is where I struggle, is I have difficulty discerning the line between I have acceptance and I don't need to grapple with this anymore. I'm gonna let it go. And I'm being a bitch right now. And I'm just running away from confrontation and I don't want to smoke. You know what I'm saying? That's the line. I'm like, I struggle because sometimes I'm like, oh, well, whatever. Sometimes I'll be like, whatever. And I'm like, I think I'm being a bitch right now. Like, I'm like, I think there might be more growth in actually confronting this thing. You know, I had a vendor that I was dealing with, and we were talking about what I needed, and we had some general ideas on price, and everything was all good. And then when it got to the end, he quoted me like this crazy price. And I was sitting there and I was trying to figure out, like, okay, do you just let it ride even though you feel like it was a bait and switch?
Right.
Or do you just not say nothing and go to somebody else? And I'm like, no. This is not what they told you. You need to call it. Have some respect for yourself, right? And the confusion you feeling right now, like, bro, that's not what we said. Like, what's up? He's like, oh, my bad. That was a typo. Who knows? It might have been, it might have been one of those typos. Let me see. You know what I mean? Let me see.
Big ass typo. Your hands ain't that big. Stop tripping.
Right. But I was like, okay, well, damn, I'd have been out here paying double if I didn't just confront the shit. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I mean, I'm with you on that. Like in that, and as I've gotten older, here's what it's become. Like, it's not worth your energy to confront everything. This is not. And sometimes you just got to clear the air. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it gets a little stuffy. You just got to open a window and let out some steam, you know, like, so for me, and this is what yoga in meditation have given me too, is the ability to lay truth on people and just have it land.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, you ain't had no business doing that, did you? And then let it land. You know what I mean? Or someone like the woman at the dining hall just being like, because I was able to see that she was just ineloquent. You know, her heart was in the right place. You know what I mean? Like, she wanted what she was trying to say, but didn't have the words. I have prayed for this place to be more attentive to diversity. That's what she was trying to say. But because she was so befuddled, like, she didn't know what to say. And so that's why you saw me like calibrating there. You know what I mean? I was just like, okay, so you coming sideways? Because I'm going to make it. Okay. You just don't have your words and you just are all over the place. Okay, cool. Like that for me. And to your point, I think you have to pick your spots, right? Like, sometimes it's not worth running away. Sometimes it's not worth opening your mouth.
I think picking your spots is something that I hope we can all get better at and adopt, because I watch how we react sometimes. And I know social media is just a crazy place in the Wild Wild West, but just the way we react, it's always 10. It's always 10. It's 10 when somebody is just an avowed white supremacist and wants to take down black people. It's a 10 when somebody is an ally and has one stance that diverts away from the convention. It's a 10 when I'm like, can we have some nuance about this whole, can we at least try and see what is worthy of most of our time? Before you go, because I know that it's a lot going on right now. It's February of 2024, and which means we're D-Day minus 9 months or so.
Correct.
8.5 months.
Correct.
Some words of wisdom, or maybe a practice that can get us through the year 2024 into to November. And I'm gonna have you back. I gotta have you back before November, but like, what? How can you help us get to November 2024?
One, and I believe this in my heart. The reason that white master culture is acting a fool right now is because it knows its days are numbered. You can't hang me from a tree no more. You know what I mean? Like, I personally have found liberation in my mind, body, and spirit. So you can throw whatever hatred you want to at me. It ain't impacted me. You know what I mean? I believe that as the orange former occupant of the White House ramps up his toxicity, we don't have to accept it. We don't have to internalize it. I mean, I knew that yoga and meditation had changed my life when during 2020, while working at Move On, like, people would be like, can you believe that Donald Trump did this? I was like, yes, I believe that a racist 70-year-old white man acted a fool. I believe that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Of course I
Mm-hmm.
believe that. So what Elder Maya Angelou say when someone tells you about themselves, believe them the first time, right? So you do not have to allow, can you believe this? Yes, I can believe this. But what I can't believe is that we still getting hyped up on this. Like, can we use our energy to organize? Can we use our energy to ignore? Can we use our energy to talk to people about becoming engaged? You know what I mean? Like, there are a lot of Black
Mm-hmm.
folks who are talking about, I'm not going to vote. You know how many people died for you to be so cavalier about that? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like just it's the lesser of two evils. First of all, that ain't true. Second of all, just do you know how many people died for you to have such a cavalier stance on your civic engagement? So that's one thing, is just like, remember that we do not have to pick up what they're putting down. Number one. Number two is that when I used to chain smoke, I thought that the cigarette was giving me peace.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. It was the breath. So in any circumstance that you're in, especially, I mean, because we just need to be more mindful. So if you're like this for hours at a time, of course your response is on 10. You know what I mean? If you remember that you have a neck and that you can shrug your shoulders, create friction in your hands, and like bring peace to your face, and inhale, exhale. And when you exhale, you can do loud, right? You can go inhale and be like, Lord, these people are killing me. Like, you can do that so that it leaves you, so that you're not saddled with their ignorance and your biochemical response.
I remember us doing that practice up at Cropano, how loud them exhales used to be. Like he waking the silent retreat up with his exhales.
Absolutely.
That was dope, man. Look, I know you got a lot going on, and you do a lot of your practices, and you do them a lot virtual. Can you give us like a minute breathing exercise to end off on?
Absolutely, for sure. So wherever you are in space and time, notice if the shoulders are up near the ears, and allow them to ground, right? Ground and round back. Maybe you shrug them a bit. Maybe you get kind of Beyonce, I'm too sexy for this right now, but just remind the shoulders that they can move. And when they move back and down, it increases the capacity to breathe. Take chin to chest. Right ear goes to right shoulder. Left ear goes to left shoulder, reminding the neck that it does not have to be hunched over a phone or a computer, that it can go in a circle or a half circle. Bring palms together, create friction in the palms. What does that sound like? What does that feel like? Notice that with the mind. Place heated hands on the jaw and notice how stress, while it lives there, can be eliminated with this simple trick. Friction in the palms, cheeks, and jaw. Then place one hand on the heart, one hand on the belly. Notice how that shoulder shrug and face neck thing eliminated stress that you didn't know that you had. Let's take 2 breaths. Deep, full inhale through the nose, fills belly, ribs, and chest. Exhale out the mouth. Switch the hands. Inhale through the nose, belly, ribs, and chest. Inhale, inspiration. Exhale out the mouth, liberation. And to close our time together, I will play this bell 3 times. If eyes have closed, please open them. And notice how much better you feel after that 1 minute and 30-second experience.
That was great, man. Well, look, I saw this. This was actually before we started. I saw this from Emmanuel. Was helping with his stomach gripping from anxiety. So much appreciate that. Yolanda said that was great. That was really dope. Stephanie said she stumbled upon this. Lucky me. Well, thank you, Stephanie. Make sure you come back. And in fact, I think I mentioned this last week, but I definitely mentioned it to Reggie. I am planning to start another channel in the spring, which just crept up on me. It's like a month away. So I'm like, man, I could be way more peaceful in 4 weeks. I need a balance to all of this, fire that I've been breathing about what's going on in the world on this particular channel. I'm gonna keep keeping on this particular channel, but I need to find a balance and I need to find a way to regulate myself so I have some longevity in this particular space. So I plan on starting that channel, and that will be a lot of these kinds of conversations. And Reggie, you have an open invitation, man. I would love to have you there as much as humanly possible.
I will, man. I mean, the last thing I'll share about my teaching practice is that, if one person finds a little bit more peace through interacting with me, then I've done my job. Like most people are like, numbers. You don't know who that one person is. Number two is that, like, if one person becomes calmer and more chill, bit by bit by bit, that's the revolution. Like, like the subtlety of discipline and consistency is what matters in this hustle.
There you have it. They evidently you helped a lot of people with that today at the end. So much appreciated. Much appreciated.
Absolutely.
And I knew that because you helped me. Okay, so I know you have on the way out. I know you have your seasonal that you're doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's another Kripalu permission and refuge that you have coming up in May.
In May and August, yeah.
May and August. Anything else that you want to point to, or where the people can find you, or where they can get, little exercises like they just got from you just on a regular basis?
Activepeaceyoga.com is the easy place to find me. I misspelled.
I think he was saying that he misspelled it. I believe it's OG Reggie Global. I think it's going to be OG. It's OG Reggie Global, right?
No, it's O Reggie Global.
Oh, it's O Reggie Global. Okay.
Yeah. And it's Active Peace Yoga. I spelled it wrong.
Oh, you misspelled that part. Gotcha. Okay.
If you look up Reggie and yoga on Google, I promise you it'll be this. Right. So I'm really easy to find.
Okay, cool. I'm obviously this live will be up on YouTube and on Facebook. I think I'm gonna chop it up and put it on Instagram as well, so those people be on the lookout for that. And on Twitter, y'all know how I feel about Twitter. His mama named it Twitter. But
Twitter.
I appreciate you, man. My wife was on here too. She said thanks for helping my husband on his journey. So thankful you're opening this discussion. So appreciate you for that, man.
You're more than welcome. One more thing I'll say is that I'm trying to do some stuff in Maryland and DC, right? All these gongs you see behind me are real. Like one of the things I do is like virtual and in-person sound stuff because everyone and their mom is talking. Y'all saw how that bowl made you feel? Imagine 30 minutes of that.
If you're in the DMV, and I know we have a lot of people in the DMV, that can be a powerful experience. I personally was there in person for these bowls and that kind of sound healing, so I can speak to exactly how powerful it is. So hit them up, activepeaceyoga.com, O Reggie Global, and at Active Peace Yoga. Hey man, I appreciate you, sir.
Appreciate and love you, man. Blessings to the family, and we'll talk soon.
And to the rest of you guys, I will see you guys on Thursday at 2 p.m. Much love.
Peace.